Beginning, the battlefield where we met. The first time I saw her, she was standing in the middle of a burning city with a weapon too big for her hands. The sky above Carthos Prime wasn't a sky anymore. It was a graveyard of starships. Broken hulls burned in orbit, falling like artificial meteors through smoke-choked clouds. The war between humanity and the Volari Dominion had reached its ugliest phase, and I was just another ground soldier trying to survive long enough to see morning. "Move up!" my squad leader shouted through comms. Moved. Explosions rippled across shattered buildings made of strange, curved alien architecture. Structures that once gleamed like crystal but now lay cracked and bleeding molten energy. We weren't here to conquer. At least that's what Command told us. We were here to neutralize hostile resistance. But resistance often looked like terrified civilians clutching weapons they barely understood. That's when I saw her. She stood behind a collapsed transport pod, aiming a plasma rifle that was clearly military grade, but her hands trembled around it. She couldn't have been older than 20 by human standards. Slender, silver-blue skin, long dark hair matted with ash, violet eyes wide with a mix of fury and fear. "Volari." My squad mate raised his rifle. "She's armed." "Wait," I snapped. I don't know why I said it. Maybe it was the way she hesitated instead of firing. Maybe it was the way she kept glancing behind her, as if protecting something. Then I saw what? 2 smaller Volari children crouched behind her. She wasn't fighting. She was shielding. Eyes met. For one suspended moment in the middle of a collapsing war zone, the universe narrowed to that single line of sight. I lowered my weapon. "She's not hostile," I said firmly. "Are you insane?" my squad mate hissed. The girl's rifle shook harder. She was seconds from panicking and pulling the trigger. Slowly, carefully, I removed my helmet and dropped it to the ground. Then I let my rifle hang loose by its strap. Her eyes widened slightly. "I'm not going to hurt you," I said, knowing she probably didn't understand the words, but hoping she understood the tone. An explosion rocked the street behind us. One of the Volari defensive towers collapsed, sending debris raining down. The children screamed. Instinct took over. I sprinted forward, grabbed the girl by the arm, and pulled her and the children toward the nearest reinforced structure just as another blast tore through the street. We barely made it inside before the building's outer wall disintegrated. Dust filled the air. Silence followed. When it cleared, she was staring at me like I had just broken reality. I had just saved the enemy. And in that moment, something irreversible began. From enemy to refugee. Her name was Lyra. I learned that 3 days later, aboard a human evacuation frigate. Smuggling 3 Volari civilians off an active war zone wasn't exactly regulation protocol. But after witnessing what was happening on Carthos Prime, I stopped caring about regulations. The Volari weren't the monsters propaganda made them out to be. They were people. Lyra didn't trust me at first. She kept her distance in the ship's medical bay, watching every move I made. The 2 younger children clung to her constantly. I found out later they were her siblings. Our languages were different, but universal translators bridged enough for basic communication. "You saved us," she said one night, her voice soft but steady. "You would have done the same," I replied. She looked down. "No," she admitted quietly. "I was taught humans are merciless. And I was taught Volari invade without conscience." A faint, sad smile touched her lips. "War teaches many lies." Over the following weeks, the evacuation ship carried survivors, human and Volari alike, to a neutral station outside contested space. Political tensions were high. Human soldiers resented the presence of former enemies. Valari civilians feared retaliation. But something strange happened. Lyra started helping in the medical wing. Her species possessed advanced biological knowledge, especially in regenerative sciences. She assisted human doctors without hesitation, stabilizing wounded soldiers who days earlier might have shot her on sight. People noticed. Fear slowly turned into cautious respect. And I noticed something else. She wasn't just surviving. She was choosing something different. One evening, while we stood near the observation deck watching the stars stretch in silent indifference, she asked me something unexpected. "Why did you save me?" Thought about it. "Because the war didn't give me the right to decide you deserved to die." She studied my face carefully, as if searching for deception. "There is no honor in endless killing," she said softly. "My people, we forgot that. And mine hasn't." Asked gently. She didn't answer. Weeks turned into months. The war intensified elsewhere, but our sector stabilized into an uneasy ceasefire. Diplomatic talks began, fragile, tense, uncertain. Lyra and I spent more time together. Not out of obligation, not out of gratitude, but because conversation felt easier. She asked about Earth's oceans. I asked about Valari sky gardens grown from living crystal. We argued about music. She found human jazz chaotic. I found Valari harmonic chants hypnotic. And somewhere between shared meals and late-night discussions about a future neither of us fully understood, I fell in love with her. I didn't realize it at first. It happened quietly. The way she laughed when I mispronounced her language. The way she instinctively reached for my hand during turbulence. The way she looked at the stars, not with fear anymore but with hope. But love during wartime is complicated. Because war wasn't finished with us yet. The offer that changed everything. The ceasefire collapsed after a Valari extremist faction bombed a human colony world. Retaliation was swift. Within days, open conflict resumed across multiple systems. The neutral station we were on became politically volatile overnight. Humans demanded Valari civilians be relocated. Some wanted them detained. Fear returned. One night, alarms blared through the station. A rogue human militia group had infiltrated, targeting Valari refugees. I grabbed my sidearm and ran toward the civilian wing. Gunfire echoed through metallic corridors. When I reached Lyra's quarters, 2 armed men were forcing entry. "Step away!" shouted. They turned. "This isn't your problem," one barked. "It is now." The standoff lasted seconds, but felt eternal. When one raised his weapon toward the door, I fired. The shot hit his shoulder. The second man dropped his gun immediately. Security arrived moments later. The crisis ended. But the message was clear. War wasn't just on battlefields. Followed us. Later that night, Lyra stood in my quarters, her expression unreadable. "You risked your life," she said. "So did you back on Carthos Prime." She stepped closer. "I have been thinking," she continued, "since the day you carried us from the fire." Felt my pulse quicken. "My world is broken," she said. "My people are divided. I no longer believe in the path that led to this destruction." She took my hands. In Valari tradition, when one life is saved, a bond is formed. A sacred offering of future. And blinked. "Lyra." She met my eyes with steady intensity. "I wish to trade war for something else," she said softly. "Make me your wife." The words hung in the air like gravity shifting. "You don't have to do that," I whispered. "You don't owe me." "This is not debt," she replied firmly. "It is choice." I searched her face. Marriage between our species, politically, socially. It won't be easy. She smiled faintly. Neither is peace. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. You're sure? Yes. In that moment, the chaos of the galaxy felt distant. Because she wasn't choosing me out of fear. She was choosing a future. And I realized. So was I. Yes, I said. Her eyes shimmered faintly, a Valari sign of deep emotion. Yes. Yes. She laughed, a sound brighter than any star outside the viewport, and pulled me into an embrace. For the first time since the war began, I felt something stronger than survival. Felt hope. Ending. A wedding under two skies. The announcement caused shockwaves. A human soldier and a Valari civilian marrying during active interstellar conflict. Some called it betrayal. Others called it naive. But something unexpected happened. Civilian networks across both species began sharing the story. Not propaganda, just the truth. A battlefield rescue. A shared refuge. A proposal born not from politics, but from refusal to keep hating. Diplomats noticed. Activists rallied behind it. And slowly, painfully, it became a symbol. Our wedding wasn't grand. It took place on the neutral station's central observatory, beneath a projection of both Earth's blue horizon and Valari's twin moon sky. Human and Valari representatives stood side by side. Lyra wore a flowing garment woven from bioluminescent Valari silk. I wore my formal military uniform, though I had already submitted my resignation papers. The war would continue for a while longer. But I was done fighting it with weapons. When the vows came, she spoke first. I once believed strength meant dominance, she said, her voice carrying through the chamber. But I have learned strength can also mean forgiveness. Then it was my turn. I was taught enemies are lines drawn in blood, I said. But I learned they are just people standing on the other side of fear. We exchanged rings. Hers crafted from earth-forged platinum, mine from Valari crystal alloy. Blending. When we kissed, applause rose. Not thunderous but steady. Genuine. Months later, formal peace negotiations gained traction. Not because of us alone, but because stories like ours made it harder to justify endless war. Lyra continued her medical work, pioneering joint human-Valari healing initiatives. I became a liaison officer turned civilian diplomat. We built a small home on a terraformed moon shared by both species. Sometimes when I wake at night and see her sleeping peacefully beside me, I think back to the burning streets of Carthos Prime. If I had raised my weapon instead of lowering it, none of this would exist. She traded war for a wedding ring. But the truth is, we both did. And in doing so, we proved something the galaxy desperately needed to learn. Peace doesn't begin with treaties. It begins with a single choice.